Rogation Sunday, which is the Sunday next preceding Ascension Day, which leads up to Pentecost, is one of those kind of peculiar anomalies of church tradition that goes back a long way and maybe doesn't seem to have a whole lot of relevance or meaning in the modern world, kind of like, why do the clergy wear the formal dress of the Roman nobility of the 4th century at the altar? Who knows? It's just something we do, and we've been doing it for a long time. So we might say, well, why do we still keep Rogation Day, which by tradition was a priest and parishioners going around the bounds of the parish and blessing the crops that had been newly planted. We might say, well, most of us live in an urban or a suburban environment. We're not necessarily growing all of our own food. But I think actually this is one of those ancient traditions that has a lot of meaning for us, even in a modern, very technocratic, very urban environment. Because it reminds us of our deep and necessary connection to the natural world, to the soil, to the land that produces the food without which we would not live. And it's a reminder that our origins are we were tillers of the soil, going back millennia. If you think about it, it's not coincidental that the Bible begins and ends in a garden. So we begin in Genesis with the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, and the blessing that God has given them, a place of abundance and beauty, and they manage to mess it up and get expelled and have to go on to earn their living by the sweat of their brow. And then we close with this wonderful vision in Revelation of the heavenly city floating in the air. And there's no temple at the center of it. Instead, at the center of it is the river of the water of life and the trees of life with the 12 fruits, one for each season, and their leaves are for the healing of the nations. And you get this sense of this is our ultimate destination, a garden of abundance and healing. And it's interesting to me that even though we live in a society where we're mostly not, as I say, growing our own food. We live in an urban environment, but even in the city, it's striking to me how many of us want to grow things. We want to plant things in the ground. We want to cultivate them. We take delight in producing food for ourselves, even if it's just a little bit. And we might say, well, in this area, of course, it's easy to grow things. It's a very green environment around here. And so it's natural that people would be interested in doing that. But our daughter lives in Tucson, literally in the middle of the desert. And she too takes delight in growing things. She has a garden full of cactus. And she takes delight in finding new kinds of cactus to grow and to cultivate, even in this very harsh, dry environment. And every time I go to the desert, I'm amazed at the abundance and the diversity and the adaptability of living things in this very harsh environment. I don't know that I could live without having a garden. I've been gardening in the same place for 37 years. And the garden, I think, reflects my personality. It's kind of chaotic. It's a jumble of all kinds of different plants, stuff that I've planted and stuff that I haven't planted. It changes all of the time. One of the things I love about the garden is its seasonality. It's always, there's something different every season. And it's very challenging. Gardening is a struggle, as Adam and Eve discovered. It's a struggle to deal with the natural challenges. Even in this green environment, the changes in the climate, the storms that bring winds and rains. It can be too hot, it can be too cold. I plant things, they grow for a while and then they die, sometimes for no reason at all. So it's a constant reminder of the kind of tenuous nature, the variability of the world and of the natural life and of my own life. I've learned a lot of things gardening. And some of them came from my mom, who was a professional gardener. I've learned that if you have a plant that is struggling, don't give up on it. Be patient, especially in the spring. Sometimes I think, oh, that thing is not coming back this year. And then magically, somehow, it does. The value of tending to things, giving them time, cultivating them, taking care of them. My mother also taught me that if a plant is struggling, often the best thing to do is to prune it back, cut it back, which challenges it and tells it, okay, you got to do something here. Cut out the bad parts and encourage new growth. I mean, I think all of these things are kind of lessons for the spiritual life too. But the last thing that my mom really taught me, which I try to follow, is that if there's something in your garden that you've planted that you end up not liking or it just doesn't work, then get rid of it. Pull it up, plant something different. The garden doesn't have to be the same all the time. I think that's a really necessary lesson for the spiritual life too. A few weeks ago, Myra and I went up to Seattle with the remains of her mother, Jean Ann, to plant them in a garden at a church where Jean Ann had been a member for many years. And it wasn't like burying someone in a cemetery. There were no containers. Instead, they dug a hole in the middle of the lawn and the church courtyard, and we poured the ashes directly into the hole in the ground. And then people took turns, if they wanted to, throwing dirt on top of the ashes. And it was deeply meaningful to me because it reminded me of the fleshly nature, the physical nature of all of us. Even in a very kind of world where we don't necessarily connect with nature. It was a reminder of the fragile nature of life. And a reminder to me of the pains and the weaknesses that all of us experience and struggle with through our lives. I think of the man by the pool at Bethesda who's been ailing for a long time and knows that he needs to get to the healing waters of the pool, but he just can't move. He's not able to get there until Jesus comes to him and simply calls him to rise up and be healed. And there are times when I too am feeling like I know I need healing, but I can't get to the waters. I'm stuck. I'm paralyzed. I can't move. But if I can reach my garden and spend time there, I often find that I meet the Spirit the healing spirit of Christ the gardener in that place. You remember the story in John's Gospel of Mary Magdalene coming after Jesus' death, coming to the tomb and meeting a man by the tomb whom she thinks is the gardener. And actually, she's rather rude to him. She doesn't recognize him until he calls her by name, Mary. And then she understands that it is, in fact, Jesus. And through the ages in art, there have been some wonderful depictions of that scene by artists as famous as Rembrandt and Dürer, in which Jesus is there dressed like a gardener, with rustic clothes or a just simple tunic and a broad-brimmed gardener's hat to keep the sun off his face, and a shovel or a hoe in his hand. And to me, that's a very powerful image, very meaningful, that Christ is the one who tends all of our gardens. And when I come to my own end, I hope to meet Jesus in the garden. And we'll meet and we'll talk about growing things. When's the best time to plant the seeds? When to dig out the weeds and when to let them go for a while. How best to prune things. And how to judge when the fruit is really ripe. And he'll hand me a trowel, and we'll dig in the dirt together and get our hands dirty. And I will know that I'm home for good. Amen.